Welcome back, everybody, to the Insightful Podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Today, we are going to speaking about comfort is a currency. Are you spending yours too freely? You guys know how I like to do these episodes. 5 points, go through all of them, and the episode ends. That is the best way to do it. You guys could take some practical wisdom from this episode and start applying to your life right now. You don't need to watch another video about comfort and how you're spending it. Just listen to this episode and start applying the knowledge from it to your life. The first point is every comfort has a cost. Comfort feels free, but it quietly costs growth, opportunity, and long-term fulfillment. The more you spend it, the less resilient and disciplined you become. A lot of people will think about the concept that if you are not getting better, you are getting worse. And there is a lot of truth to this. Because if you're not constantly seeking a better version of yourself or constantly seeking discomfort in order to achieve that better version of yourself, you are living in comfort. And when you are living in comfort for too long, you will see the effects of it. I saw this firsthand a couple months ago. I was getting too comfortable with my physique. I liked the way I looked aesthetic. I had a physique that I was proud of. And that's a good thing. You know, for once in my life, I was able to look at myself in the mirror and be proud of what I've built. But the only problem that I saw happen was that with that comfortability came a lot of slacking. I believed I could slack off because I had achieved a result that I wanted. I believed I could slack off because, I finally had a physique that I could be proud of. But what that led me to do was start sleeping in, skipping the gym, and losing that discipline that I once had, right? So you always gotta humble yourself. And as much as talking to yourself in a positive light is good, and I preach about this all the time because for so long, excuse me. For so long, I was always talking to myself in a negative light. But sometimes it can't help. It's important to humble yourself and kind of, like for example, with my physique, I'm proud of my physique and I'm proud of how far I've come and the physique I've built. But when I realized I was becoming too comfortable, I kind of said to myself, Anthony, you weigh 175 pounds. You're lean, but you're not that big. Like, what do you really like? Is this the physique that you want to have for the rest of your life? Is this good enough for you? And only when I was able to ask myself those questions, only then was I able to start being disciplined again, because I realized, no, this is not what I want. I want more than this. And I was able to overcome that comfort. So that's what I mean by comfort has a cost. Every time you put something off or every time you give in to instant gratification, it may feel good in the moment, but it is costing you your future. Point number 2, short-term comfort equals long-term discomfort. Choosing comfort now often leads to discomfort later, whether it's skipping workouts, delaying hard conversations, or avoiding risk. Comfort today can mean regret tomorrow. And I already kind of spoke about working out. When you skip a workout, yeah, it feels good in the moment because you don't have to get up and go to the gym. But the reality is 6 months from now, if you keep doing that, when you look in the mirror, you won't be proud of what you've built because you wouldn't have built anything. But I think it's super important when it comes to delay hard conversations. A lot of people will not want to have a rough conversation with someone because they know it's going to be uncomfortable, not only for yourself, but for the other person. But what ends up happening is that if you kind of don't go to this person with what's been bothering you, you start to build resentment towards that person. And when you build resentment towards that person, it ends up maybe leading to a fallout with that person that you cared about. So it's super important that, training yourself to think, okay, if I am uncomfortable right now with doing this, that is exactly when I should do it, because I know I'm only putting it off because it feels better to put it off than to do it right now. So that's the way I like to view it. That's what I try to do on a daily basis, even though sometimes it's difficult for me. It's just always coming from a place of, I know this is uncomfortable, and that is exactly why I should face it. Because in those moments of doing things that suck, that is when you build your character. That is when you strengthen your mind. That is when you develop yourself the most, is when you do uncomfortable things. The next point is comfort zones shrink over time. The more you indulge in comfort, the smaller your world gets. What once felt easy begins to feel hard. Stretching yourself regularly keeps your threshold from discomfort high. This is the reality, is always having a higher ceiling for yourself. I remember when I finished high school, I used to walk 35 minutes to the gym, work out an hour and a half, and then walk 35 minutes home. And it's funny because that would be very difficult to do now, because just thinking about it, and it's all because I allowed myself to wake up at 4:30, walk to the gym, go work out, then come home. When I did those things, it started to become comfortable. And that is the beauty of facing uncomfortable situations in your life and doing things that aren't so instant gratification. It's realizing that when you do those things, they become easy over time. And yeah, it might be difficult in the moment, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So it's super important that you're able to kind of realize that and put it into practice, that although it's bothering you right now, you'll be able to kind of push forward and push through it later on. So that's super important. The next point is discomfort builds equity. Just like investing money, investing in discomfort, cold showers, hard workouts, tough decisions, pay dividends. You build confidence, clarity, and strength over time. That is the truth. If you're able to do all these difficult things now, everything in your future will become much easier. And then a year from now, after doing all these difficult things for a long period of time, you will see that it was worth it, because now your threshold for discomfort is much higher and you're able to do things you didn't even believe you could do in the first place, right? That is the beauty of self-improvement. The beauty of self-improvement is that who you are right now is the weakest version of yourself. Because if you're constantly seeking self-improvement, next year you'll become a better person. The year after that, you'll be even better. And you'll constantly keep seeking and being a better version of yourself. Number 5, audit where you're overspending comfort. Is it in your habits, relationships, work ethic, or mindset? Identify where you're too cozy and ask yourself, what is the comfort costing me? Right? There are plenty of times where you get into that routine at the gym, you get into that program at the gym, you know exactly what to do, you do it, and then you no longer push yourself on a day-to-day basis because you've become too comfortable with those workouts. So what can you do in those moments? Just try to make it a little more difficult. No one's saying that you have to increase the difficulty by 100x. You know, you don't have to do that. But what you can do is just make it a slight bit harder and focus on constantly doing something a little more difficult day to day. That is all I wanted to go over in this podcast. Thank you guys for listening and making it this far. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know any future topics you'd like me to speak about in the future. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Brush a coal to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyming.